Okay, cool.
Good afternoon, right, go for it. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you all for joining us today. I think it's a great excitement. I have this particular webinar today. Um, After going to the conference at TPAC, I did notice that we needed to just clarify a few factors around the cloud solution of Sage 300. Also, I got JT, our John Thomas, our colleague from Sage 300 and from the development team from the Canadian side of Sage to give us some clarity and some credibility on the product, um, as well as to give us some nice information of the future of our cloud product. Before I introduce him, I'd just like to mention that it was quite strange going to the TPAC conference and we weren't really pushing the cloud solution as clear as we should have been, because people asking, well, what is the cloud solution for Sage 300? And because Sage wasn't really pushing that particular solution, I thought I would need it just to make sure that you all realize that the best cloud solution, fun enough, is right under our noses and is been written by JT and his colleagues from Canada, specifically to help us go to the future with a proper cloud and a solid cloud and solution for the clients to be offered. So without any ado, I'd like to introduce John Thomas. John Thomas has been working, just quickly, let me tell you, he's been working with the product now for about 15, 20 years. Before that, I think he worked with, he'll tell you himself what he worked with, but he's got a very sound understanding of the future of this particular. JT, please take it away. You can go
Thanks,
next
Bobby.
slide.
Yeah, I want to start by saying off, thanks to Bobby and Peresoft and, the other people from Peresoft that are on this call, Karita and Wayne and Natalie. I mean, thanks for inviting me. It gets me out of bed because I'm in the, United States. And so it's early in the morning here. So tongue in cheek, thanks, Bobby, for getting me up. But no, but seriously, thanks for inviting me because I know that in Sage Africa, sometimes the message about Sage 300 has been a little bit nebulous, right? Is it not promoting it as enough? Is it not pushing it enough? But I mean, Sage 300 is strong in Africa as it is in North America and Asia and other parts. So, thanks, Bobby. For the opportunity to come here and, A, give you a little bit of a hard time as we go, B, talk about where we are on the product and what we're doing. As Peresoft, they were early adopters in our web screens, and they really embraced it and came alongside of us when we were just starting out with this endeavor that we call the web screens. And what did that mean? And I think Bobby was one of the really first ones to embrace that and say, yeah, that's going to look like the future here. We want to do that. We want to take our product that's on premises and bring that to the web. And we'll talk later as we get into this, what does it mean between the public cloud and the private cloud, and a couple fundamental differences that once you get past the known differences and the known definitions of what that is, or it really is. But one of the things that I always strive for is that partners are crucial to Sage 300. As we can see, that we wouldn't be sitting here talking about this if Peresoft hadn't adopted this and hadn't embraced it and hadn't said, yeah, this is what we're going to do going forward. So there's a lot of opportunities. There's a lot of dependencies between Sage 300 and the partner community that we rely on. The way that I look at it is, I mean, the partners are at times and a lot of times driving the boat. I mean, you guys got some cool add-ons and features that you take and you extend 300, and it's the extensibility of 300 that allows that to happen. So it's this interwoven relationship that we have as between Sage and the partner community. And I mean, just some of the resulting things that we're seeing from this is the Cashbook and the Rec Express and the EFT Express that Peresoft's done. So we'll highlight some of those as we go through. So welcome everybody, whether it's in the afternoon or the evening or the morning. And I see Patty Doob from Sage has also joined here. So hey, Patty. I had the opportunity to meet you a while ago when I was in Joburg, so welcome. Natalie, let's go to the next
Thank
slide.
you.
Yeah, so before we get going and go ahead, Bobby.
No, hi, Patsy. Sorry
Hey,
to interrupt.
Bobby. Hey, John.
Hey, howdy. Okay, so the 300 so on premises and the cloud in one. So, what do I really want to say about this is that Sage 300 has been out there for a long time. Peresoft has been working on and creating stuff for Sage 300 for a long time. It's stable, it's solid, it's existed, and it's going to continue to exist. But what I wanted to bring out is that the when we start talking the web screens, when we start talking Sage 300 in the cloud, it's really the same product. It's multiple products in one. So when we take a look at that, obviously when you're talking the desktop, you're talking a tethered mode. You're in the office, unless you're remoting into a server that you can then get access to, and you can be wherever you want. But for the most part, you're tethered. Okay. Client server install, all the business logics there. So when we came along and we said, let's create web screens on top of that, that's taking that rich business layer, all of that logic that's been created. It's taking that same database and it's just putting a web installation on top of that. It's putting that browser interface. It's putting the ability to be untethered on top of that. But it's the same business logic. It's the same database. One cool thing about it, because it is a private cloud, is it allows you to work in a hybrid mode. So we'll talk about parity in just a little bit here. But the important thing to note is that it's the same product. Think of it as a funnel. Whether you're coming from the desktop environment, whether you're coming from the browser environment, you're funneling down through that same business logic. You're going to hit that same database, and then we're going to come up from that as well. So, everything that was done on the desktop, whether that's, financial reports that you've done, whether that's customizations, that investment, that training, those relationships stay. Now, obviously for the web, we have to reimagine, we have to redevelop, we have to get all of those solutions over into the web, because you just can't take what was done in the desktop and say, oh, here's that cash book or Rec Express that was done for the desktop, and now, ta-da, that's over here on the web. It doesn't work that way. But what we're able to do is from an SDK perspective for 300 is provide the wizards and the training and the assistance and that collaboration and the handholding together to do all of that. So that's important. You know, but once again, it's the same product in one. And I also did forget to mention that hopefully I'm very I talk with my hands. I talk with. I love interacting. So if anyone ever has any questions, please let's get those. There's going to be an opportunity at the end for us to have a Q&A. So hopefully this isn't going to be just me and Bobby, talking. If you got questions along the way, raise your hand. And I don't know, Natalie, if you're monitoring that or keeping us, aware that there might be questions out there, either post them in the chat or raise your hand and let's ask those as we go along. So. I think we can have some good interactive flow as we go here. Next slide, Natalie. So yeah, so ease of use and scalability. So parity. Right now, Sage 300 is all about parity. So we're taking our desktop that's existed for, as we know, a long time out there, and we're bringing that to the web. But as there's going to be roadmaps that we're going to show at the end, and we're going to talk about some of those things that Sage is working on to get that. But parity is important. So it's important to know that that's the journey that we're on, is taking that functionality where if it doesn't exist on the web today, you can go back. If it doesn't exist on the web screens today, you can go back to the desktop and get access to that. So there isn't any loss of functionality in what we're doing between the two products, which is really one. But we also want to get people away from that hybrid mode, because we know that people either want to stay in the desktop or maybe they want to stay in the web. And switching back and forth maybe is not the most ideal thing, but what it does is it gives us the ability, as we strive for parity, to have this information that's accessible, that you can do everything that you're doing today, whether it's in the desktop or in the web. So striving for parity is really important. Just to highlight a couple of things that we've got going right now is for those of you that use PJC, we're working on PJC screens. I think we've developed and delivered almost 30 PJC screens in the web right now. We're working on those PJC integration points, where those are integrations, whether that's in AR, AP, et cetera, bringing those into the web as well. So that's what we're really focusing on right now is PJC. Not so much maybe for this geographic region, but we're working on payroll and our HRMS integration right now, which is taking some of those things that are outstanding that we don't have in the web yet and tightening that grip on those and making sure that we deliver those.
I'm sorry, Jamie, can I just interrupt for a second?
Of course.
Sorry, I just want to say something. I know you're on the roll. Also the fact that they both work together, that you've got the on-premise as well as the cloud solution, is quite unique. It's not out there that many products can do that for you. So if, for example, the web's not working, you can still go onto your on-premise computer and still work together with the same product, same database, and you lose no functionality. I just thought I'd throw that in because it is very unique out there. It is very unique.
Yeah, and that's one of the things from a hybrid perspective that works, right? It really does work. I mean, when we started out, just for everyone knows this, when we started out with the web screens, we started out for it being our intention was to make it a public cloud. So back in 2013, when we started these web screens, and then we were getting ready to release at the end of 2015, we said, oh, we're not going to get a whole lot of people going to be able to take this on, because it'd be an MVP or a minimal viable product. So how can you do that? You take a rich, full-featured ISV partnered collaborative product and bring it over into the web with it's just plain vanilla, and you wouldn't be able to get the partner mods or anything else out there. So going with this private cloud really made sense at the time, and it still makes sense today. So yeah, so that's good. We're going to talk about the roadmap in just a little bit, but there's a couple little things that aren't on that roadmap that I just wanted to kind of throw out right now as we have the opportunity to it. There's some what I call radar items, or these things that we want to keep an eye on. And some of those I listed here, like .NET Core 5.0 or 6.0, if we also want to take a look at that, is right now the Sage 300 web screens are on a .NET Framework 4.8. As everyone knows, 4.8 framework is the end of the road for the .NET framework. Now they're still going to be, doing fixes to it and everything else, but core is the new way. I've been working with Microsoft as they've created this bridge structure of how we can get a 4.8 product over into 5.0. So that's pretty interesting. It's still in its infancy, but we're keeping an eyeball on that if that's what we want to do technology-wise. And of course, OAuth or single sign-on is a lot of talking, and can we go to true 64 bits so you can realize, more and leverage more of that web server instead of just up to 2 gig worth of memory space. So that's some of these things are important, just like a developer portal, as well as how can you go partners, external developers, where can you go to a developer portal to get additional resources? We've already open sourced the Web SDK, but what else can we provide resources for partners like Peresoft as they continue to develop the product? And what does that mean? So that's something that we're looking at heavily as well. In addition to SQL Server, they're always changing their data types, and they're extending, and they're deprecating some things. They are deprecating one thing that we use in our data dictionary. Now, they didn't deprecate it for SQL Server 2022, so we didn't have to make that change, but we're keeping an eyeball on that. So all of that stuff is important as we move forward. Natalie, next slide.
I threw the slide in, JT, just to show the actual parity, the look and feel of the two products. You can see are almost identical. So the training level, when a person has to go from the on-premise straight into the cloud, is minimal. They would know straight away where they are, what to do, and how to function. So this is the menu, and you can see the menu is almost identical to the on-premise menu, which already is a huge plus. People's familiarity with this product would be straight away. There'd be no question to it. And the following screen was to just show you, to show you again the functionality of the product and the actual screen layout. Again, familiarity is what it's all about. So when somebody had to log into a web screen on the cloud, straight away they would see exactly where they are, what they need to do, and what they need to fill in. And you can see from the screen, from the general ledger journal entry screen, it's 99% the same. Yet it's in the cloud, and it really is in the cloud. There's no doubt about it. Thank you.
Yeah, and adding to that slide, an important part about that is when we developed the web screens here at Sage, we took a look at that and said the desktop is going to be our guide. It's not going to be our exact thing that we have to do, but it's going to be our guide. If you notice, the labels sit on top of the actual controls as opposed to the left of the controls. There's, different styling. The buttons are in a couple of different places. But for the most part, Bobby is 100% right. We've tried to take that, as I mentioned earlier, you don't lose that training aspect. You don't lose that learning aspect or the features or functionality. It's all there. It may be presented in a little different format because the web is going to be different. It's a different paradigm, whether we're doing a pop-up, whether we're doing modal, whether, the web has some certainly interesting characteristics that we have to adopt to and play within. But you do see those similarities, and that's an important that's a really important part. We want to make that transition for people doing the desktop product, moving over to the web, not go, dear God, where is everything? Or how do I do this? Or where do I find this? That you're not going to lose all of that information. So Bobby, these are two good slides to add. So thank you. Yeah, next. All right, little bit of discussion here on public and private cloud. Hopefully everyone, these are some of the just conceptually big picture topics, right? How if you're up in the cloud from a public perspective, you don't own that hardware. It sits up in the cloud. Someone else is going to maintain it. They worry about it, backup, failover, high availability, all of that's taken care of by that provider that has that up there. Obviously, the others it's the flip side of that. It's for a private cloud. That's the hardware sits behind your firewall. You need to provide that high availability, the backing up of data, that type of thing. But there's some important characteristics that a private cloud offers for a product such as Sage 300 with a lot of partner customizations and add-ons and modules that really work is that data can be easily maintained and added. So as Peresoft installs their Rec Express or their cache book, that information is there. It's like that customer gets that copy of that. There's no type of weird sharing that may be out there, or how is that managed? So the really important aspect, and really all of this between the public and private cloud, is that these the software is readily available and is easily supported and managed and dealt with because it's not being shared against throughout all tenants. So fundamentally, those are the main differences. But that distinction I did want to highlight is the fact that it's the ability to add customizations and partner modules are really kind of crucial to what the private cloud offers. Kevin, I know that you had your hand up just a second. I wasn't able to get you quick enough. Is there a question that you had that we can answer right now? Okay. Well, if not, we'll keep on moving. And once again, no loss of investment. So that's key. Let's hit to the next slide here. Phone's buzzing like crazy here. Okay, security. So security is very important to Sage as it is to Sage 300. We've, from a Sage 300 perspective, we released, I believe it was about a year and a half ago, a security fact document that we have out there, which answers some of those high-level questions that people always ask us about security. What type of security checks do you do? What type of OWASP checks? What type of tools do you run to do it? What do you do this? Are you ISO 27001 compliant or not? Or what do you think about WCAG? Those type of things. So we do have a document that we have out there all the time that's available that answers some of these questions. But security is important to Sage 300. So I almost think that the cloud security is a little bit stronger than the Windows security, just because we do recommend HTTPS when running the web screens. We do recommend having a certificate. Obviously, it's important for, the firewall or the VPN or whatever you may have set up that's important to have out there, because you want to be able to protect your data. And we, as a product, want to be able to protect that data too. So one of the things is that because Sage 300 doesn't enforce what that network configuration looks like, or how you're set up in security, but you own it and protect it. So it's important that, obviously security is a big deal to customers and partners, just like it is to Sage 300. Now, I do want to say one thing that we're working on for our upcoming April release is we're working on a limited release that's going to really enhance credential security. So we're taking some of the credentials that are currently found in ISAM files today that sit on the file system, and then we're moving those into a SQL Server database. Doing that really takes that security to the next level, gets it off the file system, gets it into this managed known area that's secure, and we're going to be leveraging them to maintain that security. Microsoft is, worked hard when it comes to domain policies and local machine policies and SQL Server, that we're going to be relying on that security and tapping into that mechanism to be able to provide some of this extra security. But anyway, it's like I said, cloud security is an important thing to look at, and we play. How I should say, we work hard with a lot of the different tools that we use to make sure that the code that we're producing is secure. We do penetration tests on an annual basis on the Sage 300 web screen. So that's something that the group, I probably spend maybe a collective month of my time over a year going through all of the different reports and taking a look at all the findings and making sure that we do address anything that we find out there. And Sage, because we're a private cloud and not public, we don't have to do a turnaround of 3 days or 30 days or whatever, but we then target hot fixes if it's something that's critical. We do target the next PU for anything that we do find, or if it's something that's a low finding, we may wait till the next major release so that we, don't burden the community with having to do so many upgrades. So Bobby's going, okay, yes, I agree with that, right? Yeah, so that's important. So we'll do that. I think one thing, Bobby, you had down here, this last point here, is that, if the internet fails in a public cloud, on the private cloud, you still have that desktop available to you, right? And that's all from an on-premise or a hybrid perspective. That's always going to be available out there, that desktop. So good stuff.
I think failure of the internet can occur more often in Africa. I know it sounds a bit silly, but we are much more aren't behind necessarily, but we do have vulnerabilities that can cause it, like load shedding or those other things. So the internet, I remember the internet being down the other day also for all the different major networks like Twitter and Facebook, and that they all crashed together at one point. And I remember even once the airlines couldn't take off because they also had a crash on their servers. So if you're on both, you are available. You can work on both if necessary. You can still bring out your payroll or whatever if you're local, as opposed to just being on the cloud. So there are pros and cons. Obviously, people like to think that by handing over to the public cloud, they're not going to have any issues. It's not their problem anymore. But it's not really like that. There's something else I'd like to mention as well. Was I know this sounds a bit silly, but it isn't really. Is that your cloud link is unknown. You might even keep an IP address on it. You might not even give it a domain name, and therefore it's not going to be hacked. It's not going to. People aren't going to go looking out for you and trying to find you, where they would normally try and hack a Microsoft website, or they try and hack an Azure website and target that specifically. And because it's private, people don't really know it exists. So it's also quite nice to be anonymous within the great picture of things, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, it really is. And that's a good point, Bobby. That doesn't mean they're not going to find you, right? But
They
that,
do.
right, it's going to be that dedicated person or whatever else that's going to try that, or whoever it might be, right? I mean, that's unfortunately human nature, right? But you're right, is it does have there's something to be known in the obscurity of that, right?
Correct.
And not that big
But I'll give you
player.
an example. Sorry, but I'll give you an example. Whenever you install a network, you always rename or disable or your administrator, for example, because everybody knows there's a user called administrator on your server. For example, on the SQL server, you disable SA or inactivate SA as a user, because people know that if they're going to hack your machine, your computer, normally people don't or forget to disable guest, for example, those type of things. And people have realized that. So we are learning, these people do find loopholes or ways of getting in. You know what I mean? So yeah, let's hope this is
Exactly.
also a way of keeping it
Exactly.
private.
Yeah, and one thing that Sage tries to understand too is that we're not obviously just a North American product, right? We have to think of the various geo locations that Sage 300 is installed in, whether that's in Africa, whether that's in Asia, whether that's in North America, down in Australia, that type of thing, or the APAC region. So that's something that we always have to consider when we're doing something. What does that mean for that region? Right? Is that region going to be able to take advantage of that? That is one of the things that we're currently a little bit struggling with, just honestly, right now with a single sign-on, is that our single sign-on that's developed for Sage that we're using in some of our SaaS products was written for those SaaS products, right? So that it always has that direct internet tethered linked requirement. So we're taking a look at that going, I want to be able to leverage that, but we have to come to that service fabric team and say, this is how Sage 300 works, and this is what our model's looking like, and we might need a request a change to that so that we can turn around and leverage something like that. We're doing, something right now with IRAS, with the Singapore tax module, where we're leveraging our CE group that's going to do the communication with that IRAS server. So Sage 300 just has to say, hey, here's my Singapore tax data. I'm going to upload it to our CE team, and it handles all of that communication and the back and forth and the acknowledgement and responses. So then Sage 300 can just concentrate on producing that tax data or that information in that interface. So these other groups within Sage, what we call the service fabric, are important to Sage and 300. That we don't have to do that ourselves within the product. That then Sage can then leverage for other groups, whether that's Intact or whether that's Sage 100 or whatever it might be. So but anyway, internally, we're from a product perspective, we always try and keep that in mind, just the different regions that we have to support for Sage 300. Okay, next slide. Yeah.
Okay,
Bobby, I think
I
this is
threw the
you.
slide in just to summarize. Yeah, I did. I threw it in just to summarize and just give people a few pictures. For example, to show you the similarity between the two products. If you look at the picture itself, on the left, you've just got the VB screens running straight through to the application views, which I'll mention in a moment, as opposed to on the right, you've got a web UI going through the internet or cloud, and also going, when it hits the server, going through the application view. And I noticed something that was quite interesting about these views. People didn't understand what a view really meant. And what we did was, I think you can clarify this, in the old days when you started the Windows product, you guys developed views. Can you tell them why you did that? Or should I tell them? Okay, Shati, can you hear me?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean you to have your breakfast.
No. Yeah.
I was
I'm sorry,
just
Bobby.
mentioning, yeah.
Yeah, no. That's good. Yeah, I mean, one nice thing about the views is that's an abstract layer to the database. So you take that fundamental data or the table structures in the database, and then you abstract that and create this physical logical layer outside of the database that you can actually write business logic and code in. So this view is just not a replication of the data that's out there, but also a rich business logic layer, so that this is the door to the house. So if you consider the door of the house being the SQL server, we want you to come in through that door. Sure, you may want to try and go down and go directly into the database, but you're going to lose all of that checking and validation and relationships and other things that have spent years making Sage 300 a core product. Those application views are really the product, right? Obviously, the data is the storage of that, but that's the heart right there. So I think what Bobby's trying to illustrate on this slide here is that whether you're coming in from the desktop, whether you're coming in from the web, you're going to be hitting the heart. You're going to be hitting that view layer that then validates, checks, creates these relationships, the processing, whatever, and then we send that information down to the database. So whether you're coming from this door being the cloud or this door being the desktop, you're going to hit that same thing.
Correct. And that's what I'm trying to show here is that, we've written those views to protect the data. So what goes into the database is always validated carefully and filtered correctly. And this is where people sometimes come up with the word legacy. They say, oh, but you wrote those views years ago. Well, all languages are actually based on C and assembler. So when you talk legacy, you're talking nonsense in a way, because it's a solid base that gives you that security, gives you that consistent database secure, what do you call it, authentication, or validation of the data. And when we wrote our views in the beginning, I remember us writing the posting view. That was one of the biggest views we wrote, and it took about a year or two just to write the posting view. But once it's written, it's posting the same data. It's not changing. We don't want to start fiddling with that and changing it in the future. It's solid, it's debugged, it's clean, and it does the work correctly. So if we can keep that view and then just write a front end to that view without changing the view, it does give us a quicker turnaround time in our development. And it gives the client this security of knowing that what they're posting is still going to be the same clean and integrity clean data that's going to the database. And that's actually what we've always referred to as three-tier architecture, haven't we? That is the truth of real three-tier architecture, separating the UI from the data, from the database, and having something in between that protects it. Okay. And then just to go to the cloud. No, sorry, go back, Natalie. Then on the other side of the back. There we go. The other side of the whole equation is the cloud. Okay, what is the cloud? Okay, the cloud is being able just to log in on a browser straight into your data, and that is exactly what Sage have given us. By giving us one install, we are now able to log in from anywhere in the world without reinstalling or re-downloading anything. And that is the essence of cloud computing, is that you don't need to go and install the software on somebody's site. That you have one install and everybody just gets a login ID and a login password, and in they go. And that is exactly what we've got from Sage. No workstation setup. Any browser can log in with its, with the correct, obviously the browser must handle certain basics. And that is why it's such a, it sounds a bit of a cliche here, the perfect fit for the future, because you bring out a new browser and you can log in from anywhere in the world. And I think that's the essence of cloud software. Do you agree with that, JT?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, it makes things it's that untethered mode, right? Whether you're on
Yeah,
vacation and all you have is a laptop, and now you've got to go in and check something, or you've got to, do something you didn't leave before you go on vacation. It's like, oh, you're not telling someone to get a key to your office and get access to your computer and go do that, right? You're just able to hop on and do that right away. So that's the beauty and the flexibility of that, and that's, I think, what people expect today, right? In technology. Absolutely.
correct.
And
Great. Now you can go to the next slide, Natalie. Okay. So the next slide is really what we were working on. Been working in the UIs in the cloud for a while, and every time we wanted to post something, or we wanted to post or do a process or a period in process or whatever, we had to quickly log out of, or get out of our, what didn't log out, but we had to go to a separate system and do a backup. So what we thought of to really tighten up the cloud experience and remove to make it more convenient is a good way of putting it. We built into the system what we call Back Express, and Back Express is is a feature that you can back up your data before doing any major process straight away, and it will go up through the cloud, call the SQL server from yourselves, and then do a backup before it posts anything. And it's really a great safeguard, because let's be honest, you're a bit lazy, you don't want to do a backup, you want to just post your data and get on with your day, and you think, well, shouldn't I? I shouldn't, because it's not convenient. So the Back Express really gives you that peace of mind. It gives you that idea that you can quickly back up your software before you post, and it's really, again, across the cloud. It's not, and you in control as well. And let's be honest, you can do as many backups as you like. You can always delete them afterwards and remove them. But it's nice to have them there just in case. Okay,
Yeah,
so we built in Back Express.
yeah, and then adding to this, Bobby, then too. So I want to point out so hopefully everyone can see this, is that what Bobby and his team have done here is they've created the screen, they've created this functionality, they've created this new module / feature, right? And it's going to look a lot like, if not identical to, all of the Sage 300 screens that we develop. And that's because they're using the SDK to do that. And if you use the SDK, whether that's the desktop SDK that's going to create the views and that view layer underneath, or the web SDK that now allows you to create the screens to do that, we do want our partners to have, and we're seeing that, is that this seamless look. So you don't go, oh, this person did that, or oh, this came from this partner, or whatever else. It looks like Sage 300. It's just all consumed into one. And that's something that we strive for, to try and make sure that we have happen, because I think that's that word seamless, right? It's not just seamless integration, but also seamless look and feel and experience that the users are going to get. And it's one of the words that I like to use for our developers, when I train them, and we have that, is consistency. Let's either be consistently right or consistently wrong, but let's be consistent. And if we're consistent, the good thing about that is you don't go, huh, or I wonder, huh. It's you look at that, and it's Sage, but it's the partner doing that. So that's very cool.
Yeah. So let me say, before you move on as well, talking about the SDK and the development integration, the integration we have with Sage 300 is phenomenal. It's unique, and it's absolutely special, because you are building it within the same framework, within the same place. There's no separation of powers here. This is directly involved with each other, and you can see we've written the backup system, and it's written within the UI. It's not anywhere else, and we can do everything we want from here. And people don't even know it's using an SQL backup call or anything. It's really nicely integrated. Thank you, Sage. It does help.
Yeah. And one of the things that we do is we do want people to use the SDKs, because when Bobby or Wayne or Karita or any of the ones that we're having discussions with, they go, hey, I'm having this issue here. I can go right and take a look at that area where they're having the issue, because they're keeping that structure intact the way that we envisioned it, or the way that we develop internally too. And that's important, is that we are developing the same way that external partners are doing it. And I always tell our folks here that when we come up inside of Sage 300 with a new feature, I go, how's the partner going to do that? Right? And if the question is, the developer looks up at the ceiling trying to figure that out, I'm going to go, let's go back to the table, right? Because if we're going to do something, we want that partner to have that same ability. Case in point, recently, Peresoft had an issue with, I believe it was a year ago, drill downs, where the drill down functionality that we did was specific to AP, and then another framework for AR, and then another framework for GL. So then when we realized it, obviously it was after the fact from a 300 perspective and a Sage perspective, that I believe it's either in the 23.0 or 23.1 release, we corrected that. And we came out with a global drill down framework, so that we don't have an implementation in AP and AR and GL, which was very similar and identical, but also doesn't create issues for Peresoft, for example, when they try and do and implement a drill down in one of their screens. Now those hooks, those endpoints, those features are now available as well. And Bobby, I think you had you may
there's
have a question out there from Augustine.
Yeah, I see that. It's actually a very interesting question because obviously we wanted to provide both backup and restore. The problem with a restore, and I think this is everybody can vouch for this, when you start wanting to restore your data, people can't be in the database. Everybody has to log out. And that's impossible for people just to say, I want to restore my data and do whatever. And you can't do a partial restore. So we couldn't add the restore because you have to log out of your data. And secondly, I know for a fact, me also being an administrator, I don't want people just restoring their data without knowing exactly which backup to restore, because I might have done some other postings myself at a later stage or whatever, and we might have to work out a backup system that will do the restore without affecting everybody else. So we couldn't add the restore function. But remember, you have got multiple backup numbers and backup sequences. So you should be able to recover what you need to, but we can't do a restore. It's just too big an effect on the database. And again, I'll repeat, you have to be logged out on every user, and that is normal. That is standard across every single system, I'm afraid. Sorry. Okay. And just one last thing before we move on, last thing about the SDK as well is if we are developing and we have a person like JT available to us that we can discuss our problems with, there's no red tape, it's easier. You know, if you're in a huge corporation, sometimes to get to the guys that are the developers is impossible. Where here, we've got JT right around the corner who's prepared to share the information and help us debug stuff. And that means turnaround times are superbly quick. In fact, I know we can fix bugs and problems. We call them issues, don't call them bugs. And fix them within a day. And we don't want the end users to be down. They can't afford to be down. You know, we need people to be running within the same day, especially if it's like EFT, etc., etc. Great. We've got one there for you. What was that question? Hold on, back we go. That's fine. There's another question there. What was that question, Natalie?
Can I ask when can Sage 300 web screens able to allow document attachment for Cashbook and other modules? Yeah, that's going to be a feature. I think I mentioned earlier when we take a look at SQL Server and the data types that are out there, that there's we're making some changes right now that is going to allow us to achieve that particular document attachment. So I won't get into the details and the specifics, but we're adding some additional databases to Sage 300. As I was saying, that's going to deal with the authentication credentials. One of them is going to be a store database. And that's where I imagine that the partner, in addition to using the file system, is going to be able to use this store database as the way to store information, whether that's documents, whether that's, I don't know, and I don't care, right, out there in this database. So that is something that I see coming as we move away from the file and the ISAM information and get that into a database. I see that's where we're headed. We're getting the first part done first, which is the credentials, and then we'll tackle the rest of this. But I would say that is definitely coming, and we'll be able to do that.
Yeah, that's something I'd love to see as well, because we often want to keep the invoices together with the actual, you know, the invoice we get from a creditor with the actual payment made or whatever. It would be great.
Yeah, and then Ian, I think you're asking a question about that security document. Yeah, what I'll do is I'll email that to Bobby, and then Bobby, let you be responsible for distributing it to those who want that. It's, once again, it's a PDF, it's a FAQ, it's 15, 20 pages worth of question. It's in a FAQ format. It's questions and answer. I ask the question and then provide the answer. And like I said, we've consumed that from multiple security surveys, questionnaires, feedback, RFPs, that type of thing that we've put into a standard document. It doesn't answer everything, but it answers those most commonly asked questions. So it provides that information from a Sage perspective. That's the first section. And then a Sage 300 section, which is the bulk of the document. So I'll make that available.
There was somebody else about to talk. That Karita or somebody maybe?
It was me. I was going to read the question. Sorry.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, let's go to the last slide and then we can go Q&A. I mentioned this slide as the last one, I think it is, before we go to the roadmap. And this was people that wanted to set up a private cloud and wanted to set up a server that was separate from themselves and wanted the to rent out a server from somebody. There's a third-party guy that was at the conference, and they were offering, they called First Consulting Alliance, and they were offering a complete solution. We get hold of them, and they'll rent the server for you to you, and they will set up the whole system so you can install your software, your AppPack software or your 300 software directly onto that server and install everything so you can have a private cloud set up for your clients without having to worry about the dirty work, about worrying about setting up the server yourselves. And that's, guys, are called the First Consulting Alliance. I thought I'd just give you a mention of that for the future. Okay, right, this is the last slide, and I think is a roadmap.
Yeah, and I want to save some time to make sure we have time left here for some Q&A, but I wanted to, number one, throw out this product roadmap. This is something that our PMs our PM has created. That's the 4-year roadmap, and I tried to highlight some things as opposed to highlighting everything, right? That can just be too overwhelming, right? But if we take a look at some of the stuff that we've done and that we're doing, so the first column there of stuff that we've done and released in 2023 or are going to be releasing in 2023 because 2023.2 comes out in April. We've updated the complexity of our passwords. So, I know that some people, it's easy when you can create a password, Joe or Steve or Fred, right? But in the reality, you can't do that with any of your banking applications, right? They all require complex passwords. So, we've enforced complex passwords now. We've, updated the SQL Server driver to make it an ODBC certificate compliant driver. We've, checked with we're now Windows 11 compliant, SQL Server 2022 compliant. All of that's important. For the last little circle down there, the reports for setup UI, we created a declarative framework for reports in the web that allows us to write reports about 5 times faster. So for our 2023.1 release, we actually released 100 reports into the web that didn't previously existed. Now, if we would have taken just in a linear, that would have taken, close to a year, lining those up to create those 100 reports. Doing it 5 times faster allowed us to create those numbers. So this new declarative framework was a big boost for us as far as closing that parity gap, right? Where we had a lot of those setup reports and stuff that weren't done. You can't use it to define every report, but right now we're finding a good 80% of the reports that we're having to do, we're able to do via this declarative framework. Anyway, that's important. We've taken away some of the parity requirements of, when you have to go back to the desktop to do a product upgrade. If there's new tables and it's got to do a database upgrade, that can now happen outside of the desktop. It's because we've separated that functionality utilities, and we're working on the web screens. But just highlighting a couple of these things that are circled there, and if anyone has specific questions, and if I don't mention it, bring it out. But that one in the middle there, the FR for web and the deprecating SIRC, that's huge. So, you have we have, SI on the desktop, and then we've got the financial reporter on the desktop. Well, using those algorithms and using those formats and using those, all of the investment that you had in those FR setups can be used in the web. So we now have FR for the web, where you can actually go out and design in Excel sitting on the web and then run that same FR report that you had in the desktop now out in the web. And that's going to be coming up in the, I'm pretty sure that's, well, I'm not the product person on that one, but let's say, I know that, like I said, for the limited release that we're doing for 2023.2 is going to be focusing on security. So we're going to try and isolate the PU update in April to be just the credential security update. So it may be that financial reporter is going to be, we'll see that in August in the major release, but that's going to be a big deal in my opinion. As I said, the security feature up above there is big. Also down below, you'll notice the Lockstep Outlook integration. So Sage acquired a company called Lockstep. Lockstep already had an integration with 300, which allows a lockstep connector to be able to take data out of Sage 300 and then upload that into the lockstep cloud for invoicing and that type of stuff. That integration is going on steroids. As that now, because lockstep is now in-house within Sage. So that's something that we're monetizing and throwing a huge number of resources around for this lockstep integration as it expands. It's now going to be a lockstep platform that's going to be out there. I don't have a slide for this presentation here, but that's going to be a pretty big deal in this upcoming year. I think you're going to see a lot of information about lockstep and that integration. And then just a couple other things, like if you look way down on the right hand side there, you got the serialized inventory and lot tracking. That's another aspect of the Sage 300 product that only exists in the desktop that we know we have to move to the web. So how, a lot of the questions are, why is it taking so long? Why is it out there in 2025 as opposed to, now? It's all based upon, what can we get done in increments that make sense to Sage, that make sense to the partner community, that makes sense to getting this parity done. So as much as we want to get that serial, inventory lot tracking done sooner, it's having to wait till then just because of some of the other things that we're having to do. But we're going to get there. It's on the roadmap and we're going to do it, and we have to do it so that we can get that 100% parity. But, and then also as we start talking about a 3-tier deployment model, kind of creating an application server that we don't really have today from a 3-tier, we're 3-tier architecture, but we're not a 3-tier deployment. We want to get into a 3-tier deployment. So that's going to be good. Discovering partner web APIs. We give you the tools to create the web screens. We want to also to be able to give you a tool to create your own web API, a RESTful service that then we'll then go out and discover and show it up in ours so that you don't have to write your own web services. You'd have to write the web service, but then we'll consume them in ours. And then when your customer, your partners, they go out to that, they're just now consuming the web APIs that come with 300, not knowing if it's from us, Peresoft, or whoever it might be. So that's something that's on the roadmap too. So there's a lot of good things and exciting things that are coming up that we have on the roadmap that we're chomping at the bit to get done. We just have to do them in, you can't eat all of our meals in one day. We're going to have to parse them out just a little bit, but we're going to get there.
Sorry, I need to mention as well, I see the enhancements to the bank feed. Obviously, that's for America, and that Peresoft are going to release a major upgrade to the bank feeds coming in the next release of Rec Express, a major way of doing it. So we can have many enhancements to our bank feeds as well, which is coming out as well. Great.
Yeah. And then just answer a couple questions. I see Kevin's got a question out there, and Ian, you've got a question out there too. So Kevin from, when will the GL Financial Reporter be on the web screens? You see that's on the roadmap there. Like I said, I believe that's coming out in August.
It's a Canadian, John Chalmers.
Was that?
That wasn't for you.
Oh, okay. So that's coming out there. So we've got, I wish I had a slide that I could show you right now, but I don't have that. And just in the time, I've got a few minutes left here in the webinar here. But that's coming. So it's already done. It's baked. It's cooked. It's passed through QA. It's ready to go. So let's say August. Ian, you asked a question here. Is web screens reports that all goes into one folder? Does not have the same poser security as the desktop. That is something that was just recently discussed that I had with our product manager. That came in with a request from a partner down in Australia. So right now, I've already done a quick spec on it, what it's going to take for us to deliver that. And I'm hoping that we can deliver that for August. What that's going to give you the ability to do is going to, from a security perspective, it'll take away from the way you print on the web right now is it gets downloaded to a PDF. But it gets downloaded to a PDF on that computer, on that machine for that user that printed the report. So what we're wanting to do is offer, whether that's going to be in the shared data folder or a virtual folder in IIS, that's where those reports are going to go. So that's something that I'm pushing, and I'm hoping I can see that for August, but it's something we've identified, and we will take that on as well. As far as visual process flow, I've got that out there in the August 2025 version. And that's another parity gap item that we know that we've got to close. So we've got VPF on the desktop. I believe it was 2 years ago, we revamped the VBF or Visual Process Flow VPF on the desktop, and we put it into HTML5 and CSS3. So doing that, it's going to make the merge over onto the web that much easier, because before it was in a proprietary HTML type format. Getting over this now is no longer in a proprietary format, and it's going to be a lot quicker. But it's not on the roadmap until 2025.
Sorry, to interrupt you, JT. It doesn't matter if we go over the time. It's fine. We can carry on as long as
Okay.
you don't mind.
No, I'm good.
Got lots of questions coming in here. They've at last got somebody at Sage to talk to and ask questions. It really is nice. Really good. Go for it. There's a few more there.
Yeah, so it looks like Collington, looks like you have will it be possible anytime soon to print direct to the printer from the web screens? That was a hard decision that we made when we made that change to go directly to PDF, because we know that changed the way that people printed on the web instead of going directly to the printer. However, there are some technical considerations in the web that we were facing with the Crystal Designer and the Crystal Report Viewer that were really creating problems for us in the web. So we made the decision to go away from printing directly to the printer. That doesn't mean that we don't have the ability to go back to that. It's going to be a little bit difficult, but we don't want to reintroduce some of those challenges that we were facing. So that's something that we'll take a look at. But once again, there's an idea site that Sage has, where Sage, we get a lot of these questions that are presented to us, and the PM does troll that idea site and take a look at the questions that are being asked and saying, look, this one's being voted and upvoted a lot by partners and folks. And so now we've got to take that request seriously. So that's something that is always going to be on the table. I can't say for sure if we're going to get there, but certainly get out there to that idea site, or come through Bobby, and we can get that request presented. So we can, it needs to be entertained, whether that's one person asking for it or 100. Obviously, it's going to have more weight of 100 people asking for it, but if it's out there, we can see what it's like.
Squeaky wheel, JT. Squeaky
Exactly, man. It's that squeaky wheel that gets the oil. That's right. If you don't say anything, you can't get, that's what does my wife always tell me? She goes, you can always ask. Give me the opportunity to say yes, and not just the opportunity to say no, right? But you got to ask. Yeah.
Okay, there's a few more there.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of questions that are coming in along the print. Can the 300 web screens allow printing to preview mode first, rather than auto download it into the user's PC? So one is, as I was mentioning, we do want to solve the going directly into the user's PC. So I like either the shared data folder or a virtual folder within IIS. It keeps it on the server, keeps it outside of that person's machine. To preview it first, though, I need that Crystal Viewer. And that's what's caused problems from a memory perspective. And so I have a whole slide. If any of you are going to be in Singapore, not Singapore, Bangkok. I'll be in Bangkok at the end of April, and I've got a couple slides on that, which show how we had to address in the IIS process space, getting outside of, bringing down the whole website. And this is one of the ways that we did it, by offloading that processing outside of IIS, which got us away from the Crystal Viewer, got us directly into the PDF, but also saved abilities where printing could create problems. And I mean, you don't want a report to drag down everyone else. So we did separate that. But good question. Good questions. You guys are asking a lot of questions. This is great. Let me see if we can find them all.
JT, I think this was predictable, and I think it's great. So I'm grateful you're here. Grateful. Keep going.
Can we get rid of the Sage? Can we get rid of the Sage Advisor? So we don't have the Sage Advisor in the web. We don't have that feature and functionality. That's only in the desktop. So unless I'm misunderstanding that question, we've done that for you, right? Done. but it's in the, are you talking, so I think it's, I guess Eva is asking that question. Are you asking about the desktop specifically, or are you also asking about the web? Okay.
Okay, we'll wait for you to type up an answer.
Yeah, if you're waiting for in the web, it's not in the web, so it's only in the desktop.
Then she answered, you know, yeah, she did answer. She said to you on the desktop.
Right, right. But I did think that there was a way to disable the advisor, so you didn't have to do it. I didn't think that that was something that was. I'll check on that for you, but and find out.
What, using the CS app, taking it out of CS app, maybe?
Yeah. SSL version 20 I was able to do a demo as it did not need SSL, and I cannot do that with version 23. Do you have a way to be demo web screens without having SSL? Yes. So Ian, you're asking the question as far as SSL. I'm assuming you're talking about the certificate that we now use for the ODBC, which then requires that certificate. The answer is yes, and I do have a document where you can change that demo environment to use a ODBC 17 driver and not the 18 driver, where it doesn't require that certificate. Once again, I'll send that document to Bobby, and Bobby, I'll let you distribute that to Ian. But it's a step-by-step instruction on how you can change Sage 300 not to use the 18 certificate and instead use the 17 certificate that does not require SSL. So I'll make sure I send that to you. Okay, let's see. Kevin, you're asking callback / webhook APIs. I don't know what that means. So if you're able to elaborate on that, Kevin? And then Ian, I have web screens working on its server, but not using an external port to another PC. Yeah, I probably need some more information from you, Ian, on that one to understand exactly what you're asking about there. Because the Sage on their web screens will just use standard ports. Obviously, I've got Sage Surrender working on my machine that don't require. It's not a server, so I'm not exactly sure maybe what an external port to another PC is doing. So on this one, Ian, if I don't know if we run out of time, if you're able to get some of that information to Bobby, and then you'd be able to communicate that to me, Bobby, that'd be. I cannot open it on an external PC using URL.
I think we need a session for like 40 minutes, just purely Q&A and topics.
Yeah.
Maybe it's time to do that. We can always discuss that further.
Okay.
And doing, might be interesting to see.
Okay.
There was one we missed. Do we have a payment voucher in the system or a report we can use as a payment voucher?
I thought that came with standard reports.
Yeah, that's something I would need to. That's something that I would need to check on. I'm not an expert in that area, so I would need to get someone to get that question for me, or get that answer for me. I can do that and then provide that to you, Bobby.
Okay. Natalie, you're keeping log of all these Bobby questions. Huh? Okay.
It must be nice to have people, huh, Bobby? It says it's good to have people, right?
Yeah, it's fantastic. Every time you heard them said Bobby, I thought of Natalie. Kevin, there we go. Okay, no such payment voucher. Custom report is what we use to take care of it. Okay, but I think you need to send us. We'll send you. Well, you've got the question. You can maybe ask your the other team, because I don't think it's part of your portfolio, as they put it.
Well, exactly. And one nice thing about, when I was talking about that lockstep integration, I wish I had a slide. I mean, I got it from my other presentation here, but I don't want to switch it at this point.
We can do another presentation. Sorry, JT, we can do another session, and you can put all these things together and say, these are the topics that came up in this session.
Yeah.
And if you don't mind, because we really appreciate it, by the way.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, because one of the things I want to mention, when we start talking about the payment vouchers and stuff like that, that's one of those, that's that platform that Lockstep and Sage is wanting to provide. Something where you can go to this platform, and on this platform, you would be able to, it's now going to be a bi-directional interface and integration. So you'd be able to have your customers go to this portal, this Lockstep portal, and be able to supply their, get their invoices, do their payments, and that information then will then travel back down into Sage 300. So, you know, I'm assuming that they would also have some of that voucher functionality out there as well.
Excellent.
Kenneth, you're saying any default Sage 300 user access and activity audit log for upcoming version. So in our 2023.1 release, we did it's not an activity audit log, but we've added a new feature to where we can audit users and log user information. So we now know when people are coming in and going out of the system, and I believe some of the functionality that they're doing when they're in the system. So that's something that was added for 2023.1. But I guess I would need to know, yes, we have that from a user access perspective, but activity log, we'd have to probably more know what exactly you're wanting to see. I know that there are some products out there, like you have Pacific Tech's Audit Logger, which is a product that's out there that'll do something like that. So I know some of that has been solved by the partner community. I just don't know what additional things you might want to see kind of core to the product, I should say.
Auto numbering for doc entered in GL.
Yeah.
I think these are features that you have to post on the enhancement forum.
Exactly. Yeah, and I think this is good information. And what it shows is that people are wanting to see, we want these features to be in 300, right? So that's something that we can certainly gather all of this information and get those to our PM who are going to make that call. And then he comes to us and, you know, the technical group and the development group and say, how can I get this done? Right. And we say, well, it just takes time and money and people.
And sessions like this.
And what now? And sessions like this, yes.
There's another one.
Yes.
Yeah. Do you have a plan to add true multi-currency? See, these are all enhancements that you need to
Yeah, I mean, you can post all these enhancements on our enhancement forum, which is on our website.
And just say Sage, and it's for Sage.
Yeah.
Exactly. And these are,
I think what we should do. Yeah.
Is good stuff. Yeah.
Sorry, JT.
No, go on.
I think what this session has pointed out to me, if anything, is that we need to have another one, and because these are the things that people can't get to our Sage, and you know, having a door like yourselves to Sage development side is a huge, it's a privilege, I presume, in a way, but it certainly is a huge advantage for us in the community, and just shows that there's a huge future still that we want to keep using Sage 300 for many, many more years. And we've got a lot of questions. So maybe I'll sit down with JT and we can maybe do another session soon.
Well, yeah.
Again, and get everyone together and talk like this. I think this was really nice. And then you can bring your other notes, like the Outlook notes and all the others, and we can do a demo like that. I think that would be great.
Well, and I think that Bobby, that's something that we can do next month, because you're going to be in Bangkok and I'm going to be in Bangkok, and our PM Richard is going to be there as well. So let's, the three of us, let's sit down and say, hey, we've did this webinar today, which is more focused on technology and the web screens and the public private cloud, that type of thing, but also an idea of where we're going as a product, technology, and also features. But now we're getting a lot of these questions about features which are in the product that we are either missing or need to be enhanced or whatever. And maybe let's get PM involved in that too, I think, who is responsible for providing for the direction of the product. And let's see if we can maybe do another one of these with him as well. And let's get that. I like that idea a lot.
Brilliant idea.
Yeah.
Me too.
So we'll do
And
that next month.
gives
Bobby.
people feedback and gives them confidence in our products as well, and makes them feel that there's something going on that hasn't been happening for a while, and it's been a gap. There's no doubt about it, and it's time to close those gaps and to give people the confidence and to understand where we are going, and there is a future.
It is, and 300 is being heavily invested in right now, and that's a good thing, right? Because if they're not, I'm too busy if we're not going to be out for the long haul. So the answer is yes. I mean, we see the amount of dollars that Sage 300 as a product brings into Sage as a bottom line. So it is something that we're investing in the product and doing. So there's longevity in this. So we want to make sure that these requests, those get adhered to, because those are the people that are out there selling it, running it, supporting it, needing it to have these done, so that we keep the customers happy, which is ultimately the end goal. So yeah, absolutely.
Keep the dealers happy. I mean, it's all about the dealers. We write the stuff, but if no one used it, it would be pointless even writing the stuff. And I've always wanted people. I always find my success is how many people are using what I've written, as opposed to the other way around. And I must say, we've got an incredibly strong and clever dealership out there. They're very smart. They know the product a lot more than people realize, and that's what makes 300 so strong. So I think we're going to have to call this to an end eventually, because we're already 15 minutes over. And I think what we'll do is exactly what you said. We'll meet in Bangkok and we'll discuss with the PM guys and have another one of these next in May. And we got a very good turnout today, over 50 people. Just shows you the interest involved, and really appreciate having you on the show, having you on the webinar. Thank you very, very much, JT.
Yeah, well, like I said, it was my pleasure, Bobby. I like, as a developer, as an architect, you want to satisfy people. You want to give them what they want. No one wants to deliver something that someone's not going to use. So absolutely. So, and I want to thank, you Peresoft, Bobby, Wayne, Karita, Natalie, for inviting me, and everyone who attended this. Thanks. I mean, seriously. I've been on some of these webinars before. It was like, you got to pull teeth to get questions asked. So you guys are fantastic as far as your questions. I appreciate you not being shy and speaking your mind and your questions, and being out there. So thank you for that. That makes it enjoyable for me, and I'm not just losing my voice for no good reason, right? So thank you. Right? Absolutely.
You didn't get up early for nothing. Thank you, everyone. I think we've come to for a tremendous session today. Really, really great. And it was really great meeting you, JT. I think people have now met you, and they can see that you want to feed them and give them the info they want. And that gives them a lot of confidence in the product. And I think that's what it's all about. And thank you, everybody, for attending. Thank you for supporting us. We really appreciate your support and coming onto the session. It's been great. Thank you. Thank you very much. I think that's it. Thank you, JT.
All right, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
Thanks, JT.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye, Bobby.
Cheers, Uncle Bobby.
Selwyn, pity I'm going to miss you. How's it?
Yeah.
Good to hear you.
Thanks, Eddie. Bye.
Bye, Patty.
Cheers, everyone.
Cheers, Uncle Bobby.
Cheers, bye. Thank you, Uncle Bobby. I'm not that old. Thanks, Niels, everyone. Thank you very much.